The Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, is seeking court approval to freeze Binance US crypto assets. The reason the SEC is taking this step is because of customer safety concerns. Binance US is among the world's largest cryptocurrency exchanges, with billions of dollars in trading volume every day. The exchange claims to have more than 10 million customers. However, the SEC alleges that Binance US accepted trading from individuals living within the US without registering with the proper authorities. This violates several securities laws. In addition to the trading violations, the SEC alleges that Binance US also failed to register its securities offerings.
Acting as an unregistered broker-dealer and listing unregistered securities, which has been up for debate in the crypto community when it comes to regulators, at least for a long time now. Coinbase, we know, says that a lot of the things that they've listed are not securities, while the Securities and Exchange Commission believes they are, and they have a very specific list here of tokens that they have referred to as believing. Talked about the listing process they've had at Coinbase, so we know that they vigorously disagree with what the SEC is saying. Listen, Ed, I think there's another couple of twists and turns in this story too, because if you remember, Coinbase actually had looked to acquire or had acquired a broker-dealer license that has been dormant with the SEC. So I expect that to come back up again because they have been talking about that in recent months. So it's not for lack of trying to become a broker-dealer as they are being sued by the SEC here.
Let's just broaden the conversation to Binance, which of course was the news of yesterday. So the SEC is tackling all manners of exchanges at the moment.
Yeah, and you have two different things happening on two different days. You have Binance, the largest exchange in the world, but some of the allegations being made against Binance are very different than the ones being made against Coinbase here. At Binance, they are looking at know your customer rules, corrupted trading volumes, reliance on related party transactions. Another thing to look at with Binance is the difference in where the suit was filed. That is a very subtle difference. However, in the legal community here too, if you look, the SEC had filed that suit in Washington versus New York State. Remember, there are ongoing investigations elsewhere when you look at the U.S. government and how it's trying to look at Binance's operations, particularly because Binance as a whole is not on U.S. ground. When it comes to Coinbase, again, this is a matter more largely of not just unlisted securities or the allegations of having unlisted securities. It is also the staking as a service, which, as we know, is a pretty critical on-ramp in the way we think about how people will engage in crypto moving forward. The other, acting as an unregistered broker-dealer and listing unregistered securities, which has been up for debate in the crypto community when it comes to regulators, at least for a long time now. Coinbase, we know, says that a lot of the things that they've listed are not securities, while the Securities and Exchange Commission believes they are, and they have a very specific list here of tokens that they have referred to as believing.
And that's why they're getting into different investments like Ether. Of course, it could also be that people just see the prices going up and there's a lower cost of entry for these altcoins and they're jumping on them for that reason. What's your take?
I mean, it's always a variety of reasons. There's probably close to 300 million people in the crypto market now. So everyone do it for different reasons. Some people are trading for speculative returns. They look at what's rising and they just try to jump on it. But I think what you mentioned about the use case is actually a very accurate. I think for the people that I interact with more, I think they find that most people learn about Bitcoin as the first cryptocurrency. If you learn about cryptocurrencies, blockchain, you have to go through Bitcoin. You learn about Bitcoin first. But after that, they do venture out and say, hey, well, now there's a blockchain. Blockchain is not just Bitcoin. There's a lot more you can do by in addition to just transferring value. You can do smart contracts. You can do many other things. You can do NFTs. So all of these use cases are booming right now, and people need the other coins to do this type of new transactions. Ethereum is one of those clear examples. That's probably why Ethereum is going up.
CZ, my concern is, and you've been tweeting about this, a lot of people rip on Bitcoin and they don't even know what a public key is. Or you have people investing in your BNB, but they don't know the use case. They're just jumping in because the price is rising. And if you have too many people like that, that's irrational exuberance. That's froth in the system. And it doesn't provide a solid base for prices. That's why we get even more volatility. How do you look at volatility and people that are serious investors in crypto?
So I think it's the same proportion of people who are in traditional stock markets or any markets that's actively traded. There's always guys who do fundamental research and understand the underlying assets in a lot of detail. Some people understand BNB more than I do. And then there are people who just follow other people, who just following the herd. There's always a large number of people having the herd mentality than the guys who actually do serious research. That's just how advanced our civilization is right now, which is everywhere. So it's not unique to crypto. It is in crypto like that. The herd followers are less committed. Whenever there's some negative news, they run away. Whenever there's positive news, they try to rush in. So they do cause more volatility versus the sort of the diehard fans who understand and really love the projects. But it's the same thing in stock markets. There's nothing new in crypto. So volatility is everywhere. And actually, Bitcoin. Bitcoin is probably less volatile than similar sized assets like Apple stock or even Tesla stock.
Of course, Binance in some ways benefits from all the volatility, given you are the biggest crypto exchange in the world by volume. What is the composition of your customer looking like? How is it separated between kind of retail investors who are just chasing the rally and actual institutional investors? And as you get more institutional buy-in, does that mean volatility is going to go down?
Yes. So I think our makeup so far right now is still major retail, but the institutions have been rising much more quicker than retail over the last year or so. So I think right now it's roughly about 70-30, and it also depends on how you define retail versus institutions. Most of the retail people do simple buy and sells, whereas the institutions are more sophisticated. There are also large institutions that do volatility trading. They seek volatility, and they sometimes even want to generate volatility. So it's not to say that just because there's more institutions trading, then there's less volatility. The guys like MicroStrategy, they buy and hold in large amounts. Those guys reduce volatility and they push the price up permanently. So we do see a mix of users, but our user base is still more retail today.
You're also launching Binance NFT next month. It'll be a marketplace for non-fungible tokens specifically. Do you expect institutional investors to be interested in that? How big is that market opportunity?
To be honest, initially, the short answer is I don't know. Initially, logic says that the institution NFTs trades in a very different style. They trade more like an auction type of style because there's only one item to be traded, and they're not fungible. So it's not like Bitcoin. You can buy like parts of it, and every Bitcoin you buy is the same. It's interchangeable. So non-fungible tokens right now is still the early days of NFTs. So most likely, most of the trading mechanisms are more like auctions. One big item goes for millions of dollars, hopefully, and there's smaller items as well for people to buy. But I don't think today the institutional traders who are doing high frequency trading in fungible tokens can migrate to that very easily. Those are more like art collectors, etc. For the initial iteration, and so people have to understand art, and people have to know what the meanings behind it, and they have to have a pretty good sense of whether it's going to go up or down later on. So it's probably a different type of users.
I wonder about Binance. I talked to Anthony Trenchev about this with Nexo as well. They don't have any plans to go public right now, and you've said you don't have any plans to go public. Why not access the public markets, especially right now when your popularity, the momentum is there?
Sure. So I think we have a very good example of a private company that's done really, really well, and it's Bloomberg, right? So I used to be my ex-employer as well. So Bloomberg never went public. I think going public is a good option for many companies. It's a good way to raise money. It's a good way to for early investors and sometimes even founders to exit partially or completely, or at least have the option to do so later on, and also have publicly discoverable pricing on the trading market. But for many organizations, they are sufficiently well funded. They have sufficiently solid businesses that are profit generating, same as Bloomberg. So they don't really need to go. They don't have no need to raise the money. And then investors may be long-term driven. They are not really looking for a public exit anytime soon. There are still other ways to exit a business if you really want to. So I think basically it's not like, and only a very tiny percentage of businesses, even the profitable for long-term businesses actually go public. So public is an option for many, but it's not a mandatory thing for every business.
This is kind of ties to the private versus public, but different ways of thinking about digital currencies. You, of course, have Bitcoin and Ether, cryptocurrencies in that space. And then you also have things like the digital yuan controlled by central banks, the PBOC in China. Do you see those coexisting? Or is one day currencies controlled by governments and central banks going to displace the likes of Bitcoin?
I think, obviously, I believe they're going to coexist for a while. I think they will coexist as long as people are willing to hold, either or both. I think most of the first generation central bank digital currencies or central bank blockchain currencies, they will use blockchain technology, but they will most likely miss a few key properties of sort of what we call pure cryptocurrencies, such as permissionless. So no one's in control of the digital currency, limited supply. So there's no more additional minting after the first, or at least we set our upper bound, and it's never going to go over that mathematically. And also more freedom of transactions. Most central bank digital currencies are going to have quite a lot of surveillance and control attached to it. That would be my expectation. And that's logical to expect, I think. So I think property-wise, even though they're all going to use, they most likely will use the blockchain technology. They will have encryption. They will have private keys, public keys. They have blocks that forms a chain. That's all fine. But at the end of the day, those core properties that users care about that matter. So I think they will coexist.